Hi, Jesse here, and I am so freaking excited because today is about 10 days from when I initially was going to start this insulation project before I got completely derailed and had to rewire this entire barn. So now is the day that I can finally report that I'm going to insulate the inside of this cathedral ceiling. And so behind me, you can see I now have my recessed lighting. It is all operational and working in all directions, which I am really stoked to have because it adds a nice warmth to a very bright room when I have just the LEDs. So here's the plan for completing the insulation of the roof. We are going to make a cold roof system, and it starts with some Rafter-mates. These things have been around for ages. I used these probably 20 years ago. They are still probably one of the most common type of roof vent. So this one is going to be the one that I'm going to use. I have 22.5-inch bays, so I have to buy the super wide ones. And also the nice thing is they have flexibility so that you can bend them down and seat them firmly with the top plate of your floor, so that then can bend and then be firmly seated up against the sheathing on your roof. Now mine just goes horizontally. Probably most people have plywood, doesn't really matter. It's the same concept. So these will bend down, I will staple them down on the ground, and then I will curve them up, and that will direct the airflow from my soffit all the way up to my ridge vent eventually. Right now though, I do have vents on both ends of my roof. So really what I'm trying to do is get the cold air off of this floor and up to the next floor, because then at least I'm not sitting in a windy barn like I normally am. Couple of the tools and supplies. This is about as basic as it gets. Insulation sucks. I hate doing this, but it is an absolute necessary evil, and there is a massive notable difference here. So wear some eye goggles, definitely wear a mask. There's a lot of fiberglass floating around that you definitely don't want. And then most importantly, and probably something that can be easily overlooked, is how you're going to secure both the rafter vents and the R30 craft faced insulation that I'm going to be putting up. You need to be using staples, and not just any staples, not these JT21 crap staples. These have no width and they will do absolutely nothing. So do not use these. You want to use the T50. These are wide, and they also have a gun that is used, and it does not penetrate through this polystyrene Rafter-mate. These things are really pretty flimsy when you come down to it. So you can't be using a hammer stapler to tack these up there, because you're just simply going to puncture through that. And the point is here is we are creating a vapor barrier from anything that's going to be coming in contact with my insulation. And so it's really, really important that you do not puncture these as you're putting them up, because then you're allowing airflow down through that. The second thing is we're going to be laying the Rafter-mates. So we're going to be starting at the bottom and working my way up to the top, so they will be slightly overlapped. I will show you a little bit about how I do that in a little bit more detail. And then the craft paper fiberglass bats. These come in 4-foot sections just like these do. And so I actually have a perfect 12-foot right here. So I'll be putting in 3 bats. You can kind of see I have a mock-up over here. So I will be doing 1, 2, 3 to get me up into the eave up here, or the second floor. And then I'll be working down each bay. I have 19 on each side, 38 in total. It is a massive space, so it's gonna take me a bit of time, but this part goes pretty quickly. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll start showing you as I get moving along. I'm gonna try to show you this because it's not exactly the most easy angle. It's literally the smallest point of my entire roof. But out here is my soffit, and underneath here, and actually I can show you, in here, you can see I have put in between each individual bay chickenware, because I don't have vinyl soffits underneath. So I just wanted to make sure that I can prevent anything from making its way into this part of my eave and up into my roof. I'm doing the very best that I can to go meticulously around this roof so that nothing can come in from any side. So I went ahead and filled that in with every single bay with that wire chicken. A full breeze basically from my soffit here all the way up to the top of my roof when this is completed. So how do you put in these Rafter-mates? This is basically how you get it done. So you take this, and there are these folds that are on here. Particularly the ones that are in the middle are probably the ones you want to try first, because you want to make it so that you can actually fit it into the bay while also bending it down. And the key is try not to rip it. I brace it up against the back piece of the wood. Three staples about on each side. Then I extend it out to the other bay. Three staples. Honestly, I don't know how many staples they recommend. And then, because I'm doing this across my entire roof, I have basically a line of where my sheathing is up on top. So I'm going to bend this down to make a nice angle. And then I'm going to secure it in the middle and on the sides. And you can, I'll show you. And what makes this gun really nice is you can kind of see the staple. It puts it in, but it doesn't push it through. Sorry for the close-up on my face. But I have about a staple every, I don't know, 12 inches or so, and then left, right, and center, and then down to the bottom. And now you can see I have a nice line now. And all this air, I can actually feel right up in here. I can feel all the air that comes through. And then the next layer, we'll go here. There's a general like 2-inch gap overlap. There we sit. And again, because now I'm starting to actually direct the airflow. It's crazy how much air you really are redirecting now up to the next layer of your roof. And why it's so important that you have these. Because remember, you're making essentially an environment here in between the Rafter-mate and your sheathing, essentially exactly like it is when I don't have any of this material in here. The roof is the same temperature as the inside and the outside. This polystyrene is giving you that constant airflow, so it's drying anything out. It's having really good air circulation. And then that insulation that I'm gonna put right on top of it just gives it that perfect thermal barrier and cushion. It pushes right up against this and gives it a nice seated position. And if you do it right, it'll last forever, as long as your shingles don't fail. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put up the rest of these Rafter-mates, probably in the section. I will go floor to ceiling with these. That should be pretty quick. And then I'll show you how I do the insulation. Also, I have some beautiful knee pads. It's kind of a nice requirement here because you're going to be down like this for a while. And again, try to take care of yourself a little bit despite dealing with all this crap. So let's go ahead and get this thing done. All right, so I got, actually it's 4 sets on each bay here. So it's 16 feet on each bay that I'm going to be insulating. I misspoke earlier, but it doesn't really matter. It's still a lot to do. So I just wanted to show you quickly on the insulation. So I have craft face fiberglass insulation. This is R30. I also have the Rafter-mates. Now the depth of these bays here is a full 10 inches. Now, I did a lot of trial and error trying to figure out the exact perfect way to fit 2.5 inches and then a R20 something to completely fill that out exactly perfectly. It's not possible, and if it is, it's not worth the time. And so when I bought these bats, these are for 10-inch bays. However, I let them sit out. Yeah, they maybe do go all the way out to 10 inches, but for the most part, me putting these in full as they are, right up against these Rafter-mates without actually taking off some insulation, that was initially going to be my thought. Again, the risk and the reward is not that much different. I'm compressing it a very minimal amount. I also did some research. I'm happy to share the website that I went to where they did an analysis on compression of fiberglass, and I lose like an R1 of 2 or 2 in the whole entire process. And again, I don't give a shit. I want this barn to be warmer, and right now it is cold. So whatever I'm doing right now is just going to add to the outcome for what I'm trying to do. And the effort is not worth the reward to try to finagle, you know, rigid foam board in this. This is going to work just fine. So for the purposes of demonstration, I just wanted to show you this is basically how they're going to sit in the bay. And probably the #1 mistake that I see that is just mind-blowing to me is that people staple fiberglass insulation on the inside of the stud. Folks, these are made to flip over because they sit flush on top of the stud base. So why would you do this? Doing this actually just allows more airflow. This creates a perfectly tight seal when stapled all the way up the seams. And when you're only doing 2x4s or anything that's about 1.5 inches, when you fold these over, they actually just touch each other just enough. And that's because they were made that way. So, you know, do things the right way and you'll have a much better outcome. Plus, it actually pulls these nice and tight together inside the bays. And the last thing is, this is 24-inch insulation. My bays range between 22.5, 23-ish. I'm not going to remove 1/2 inch of insulation or 1 inch. It's getting stuffed up in there. So I know I told you not to stuff it, but this is a slightly different stuffing and compression across the entire bay. So I'm really not losing much here, folks. I'm just trying to make this easy on myself as a one-man crew. So let's go ahead and put this insulation on. And I can tell you right now, just by standing in this bay area right here, it is amazing the difference between not feeling the wind and having it go up versus standing in an open bay. It is insane how much this is gonna change in a matter of an hour. So let's go ahead and start stapling this on. I don't need to overlap it. I'm just gonna go each bay at a time. I should get 4 in each. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 24 sets to put up. So let's get it going. All right, so I thought I'd chop in here with some guidance on going around the light. That's why I left that bay open. So obviously you can't put the graph paper over the light, but you can certainly go around it. And if you saw how I threaded the insulation around the cable that went through the wall, don't just stick the insulation right up against it, peel it back in an approximate position and then slide it in and sandwich it. And then that way you're not losing or adding a gap or compressing the fiberglass in certain spaces. So you want to leave that space open. Now, if you remember too, recessed lighting, these can have insulation right up against it. I'm not going to jam it in there, but I certainly want to try and avoid having as much air coming through that light fixture as possible. So I've generally marked it out, and I'm going to just cut it out of the bat before I put it in there. So 40. And again, because you can essentially move insulation relatively easily, it's a rough estimate. It's not perfect. So you just don't. Take it, put it on a hard surface, and then compress it. You can essentially cut it right out pretty smoothly. Now, I have my little square. I'll peel the fiberglass away. Get behind the light. Press. Nice, left over fiberglass, and I can essentially see it mainly around the back side of the can. Okay. Okay, so that's the process. I don't need to show you every single piece that I hang up here, but this is essentially it from the beginning. I have a considerable amount of work left. This in itself, this one section probably took me about an hour and a half, if not 2 hours from start to finish. So this stuff does go pretty quickly. Just a couple of real key notes here, okay? This is what I think is a master freaking class in insulation. If I can't do my regular day job, I am good at insulation, I can tell you that much. Because when you put up insulation, although you can't see it, there is an art to it, okay? And if you can see how I have these pieces, there are no rips in the paper. Each side from one bay to the next overlaps the other. The bottoms of each layer as they go up, they overlap about 1/2 inch to 1 inch. And the staples go flat this way, not this way. Because when they go flat this way, it allows you to have better surface tension and pull on there. And so now you can see it's pulled this up nice and firmly, right, and seated right up into this bay so that when our drywaller comes, AKA me, I can really stick this up and it'll be a nice firm seated position. And it'll give you exactly the way that these are designed to hold that thermal barrier and that vapor barrier from the inside and the outside. Last key thing is down here on top of essentially the top plate from my floor. I folded down the paper here and stapled that up against there. So that gives me not only the bay from where the Rafter-mate comes up, but it also gives me the craft paper right up against that top plate. And I still haven't figured out how I'm gonna do this, if I'm gonna do a knee wall, whatever. But for right now, this is going all the way to the floor. So I'm gonna take care of that. And I have to say, right now, this particular section, I mean, I am literally sweating right now. So I can't tell you how freaking stoked I am. Thanks for checking in on this particular part of the video. Next time I check in, this whole place is basically going to be complete.